Right, I'm here in the beautiful Stanmore County Park. Right, lots and lots of great things here, great hiking spots, great scenery. And London is just in the distance there, here at Wood Farm Viewpoint. In fact, London is just in that direction over there. So, I had a question to my fellow drone pilots here, especially the commercial ones who do things like videography and photography. And my question is, how do you keep up with things like drone regulations and cross-border regulations and compliance? So for example, myself, I went to Italy, I used an application called D-Flight, and I'm finding it more and more frustrating to keep up with everything that's coming out, especially within this country. With regulatory changes to the CAA website, apparently they're now not going on weight. There's some sort of new classification due in 2026. Which I believe is going to be more closer to EASA rules. And if you're in Europe, for example, if you're working with EASA, then coming to London in the UK, you need a separate license if you're flying over 250 grams of drone, essentially, right? Weight of drone. So it got me thinking a little bit here. It's like there's a lot of changes coming in, a lot of different countries with different rules and regulations, and just to top it all off. Right, I've got my drone right here. It's a DJI Mini 4, so I'll show you that in here. All right, that drone right there, DJI Mini 4 Pro. And I tried to take this through to customs on the flight, and I was really worried there because I was worried about my power levels for the batteries, because some airlines are now restricting what you can take in drones entirely in certain airlines. So imagine taking a Mavic, for example, on an air flight. Now I've got to look into documentation about how do I file to take my Mavic 4 on a set, for example, if I'm doing photography or videography, right? All these sort of different things, like, do they use the same terminology in the UK for things like a flight restriction zone, right? So in Stanmore County Park, the local aerodrome is Elstree Aerodrome. So where I'm at the moment, the FRZ is actually in their jurisdiction. So I have to call them to make sure that I'm legally allowed to fly in this jurisdiction, which I'm safe to say that I have done for today's flight. And I've also informed them that I've ceased drone operations at this point in time, right? So stuff like that, right? Are we near a military zone? Is there a DMZ? Or do we need to have extra permissions, right? All this additional data, who do I contact in these sort of events, right? All of this data has got me thinking, how do commercial drone pilots actually sit down and work all of this out? Because it's a lot of data, right, for one person to handle. Like if I'm a videographer, if I'm a photographer, we just want to get on with flying. Why do we want to sit there and work out all of this regulatory stuff, right? If I'm crossing a border, for example, to go to a different country, if I need to do so, right? Irrespective of the industry, be it within drone photography or videography, or if I'm going to do an inspection for, a different company, right? Perhaps in oil, perhaps in energy. Now, of course, that comes with its own set of requirements as well, because if you're in an industry which is not photography or videography, for example, if you're looking at BVLOS, if you're looking at autonomous systems, for example, requires a separate category as well. So now you've got even more things to worry about. So hence the question to my commercial drone pilot friends who've got things like the A2CFC, the GVC, EASA, FA Part 102. How do you deal with all of that stuff? How do you come to that conclusion? In fact, today with me, I was looking for people who are flying in a field like this, right, to practice their drone mobility, right? Because you want to make sure that you have safe control of the drone within your line of sight, practicing to a nice, legal, good standard, right? As we all should be doing. And I was quite curious, actually, because I only saw two Perspective clubs from FPV UK. Now, FPV UK is your insurance, right? Which is another thing to factor in if you're going abroad and you're doing documentation for things like, declaring at customs, for example, or if you're in a different country like Italy, right, with D-Flight. And even finding that information out is pretty tricky, depending on, who owns the site for the authorization. So I thought to myself, it would be great to get or make an application which kind of consolidates all this information down and gives you just, a simple, easy to understand, is my license up to date? Is my documentation up to date? Do I need anything else to fly in this particular location which I'm planning to film on? Do my photography, my inspection, all that kind of stuff, right? Even for a risk management, right? If I'm in this park right now and I had a Mavic 4, for example, I would have to file under Article 16. I didn't know this up until recently. Article 16, I'd have to file a risk assessment, right, to fly in this park. But because I'm doing it for recreational purposes, it's fine, right? I don't fall into Article 16 because it's not commercial. If it was commercial, I would be under Article 16 and they would be asking me for a risk assessment, right? Luckily today there's nobody around, right? It's just me in the park, right? And that'll be for 50 meters at current, right? At the current regulations, I think it's 50 meters and 120 in height. So, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in. And I would really like to get some input and like to see what you guys come up with in terms of where you are. And in fact, I think there was another application which I saw for finding people who, go in the fields and practice their drones. I think it was called Drone Academy or something. I can't remember exactly what it was called. But it was a separate app, which I had to find through TikTok, of all places, instead of my insurer. So it's just very fragmented at the moment in terms of drones in the UK. Very, very fragmented. So I'd like to collate and coalesce all that data. And I'm thinking about building something called SkyPass. SkyPass, what it is an application which is going to consolidate all this information down based upon the information which is out there and give you an idea as to whether or not you're compliant to fly in a particular country. That's the idea. So collating things like, okay, well, is my insurance up to date? Is my licenses up to date? Do I have the right documentation? Is there anything happening within that particular jurisdiction where I'm flying that I need to be aware of? Are there changes to regulation which I'm not aware of? Things of this nature, right? Document consolidation for cross borders. So with this application, the idea is that you can upload your licenses for different pilots and not repeat the information again and again and again to go and file it off to an authority like the CAA, the FAA, or EASA, right? The particular country's authorities which you're flying to for the border crossing. The idea here is that you get all of the information checked for you by the application, and then you can manually submit that over to the authority, either via an email or you print it out. Unfortunately, it can't be done autonomously. As much as I'd love to do that, it is a planned feature which I'm planning to release, but that's only if I get the authorities themselves, like the CAA, the FAA, and EASA, to update the systems, and then I can go and do this all autonomously for you, because I think that'd be brilliant, personally speaking. And I know that the US does have some sort of facility at the moment to do something very similar, but I don't know if it's in place. So yeah, if you have any information, if you're willing and interested, it's the website to get this particular bit of software, or when ready, because I'm still developing it. It's going to be skypass.piccity.co.uk. The website again is skypass.piccity.co.uk. And let me know your thoughts. Let me know, where you stand with this and where things are going. If there's even an application out there which I've missed, for example, or something which I'm not familiar with, then that would be absolutely amazing. So yeah, just let me know and look forward to hearing from you.